The first Valley bombing absolutely derailed the Australian peace movement. The Madrid train bombings, Graeme has already mentioned.
I mentioned London.
You mentioned London, but not Madrid. In Madrid, these bombings came 3 days before a federal election. The idea was that if there was a terrorist bombing, that the population would vote for Aznar, who was the right-wing candidate, the law and order candidate. But he didn't get in, because as far as I can understand, most of the Spanish population, having had all that experience with Franco and so on, actually saw through it. And I read that there was panic in the corridors of the Pentagon when the Spanish people failed to bite on that particular false flag operation. Beslan School massacre, 344 people dead. The London 7/7 bombings, which was mentioned, my wife and I were on that very street 2 weeks before. The Basra boys, this is an absolute case of a false flag operation being uncovered. A couple of people dressed as Arabs, who are actually British undercover agents, were stopped by the police in Basra, Iraq. For what reason, I don't know. But their disguise was uncovered, and they had a lot of explosives with them. And they were on their way to a public market. And so they were taken in by the police and put in the Basra police station. Well, the British military weren't pleased about that at all. That was their undercover guys. And they mounted a complete assault on the Basra police station, smashed down the walls, and actually let out all the prisoners, including getting their own 2 guys out. And in the course of the British being there with a tank, someone threw a Molotov cocktail, and that's where that picture comes from. The soldier leaping out, he survived, he was okay. Anyway, that's basically it. There are many more, but that gives you an idea of how many of these that there are. Now, I'd like to switch. I'm going to depart from the remarks I have in part, because I also have here something that you might enjoy. And what it is a 2-minute and 24-second video. It's called The Terrorism Industry. Sort of listen closely and watch closely.
One more time about the rates.
The box is $9.95 a month, but if you sign up for 6 months and pay by credit card, it drops to $7.50.
Too much math for me.
Right, well, that's the same as the $2.45 a month.
What would you do? She likes him.
2 years, you see.
I'm not interested in her.
He's quite the salesman.
One of his many talents.
Subject to purchase. We got it.
Do I have to decide today?
No, of course not. Just take the form and let us know.
This form requires a lot of information.
This doesn't work.
Excuse me. What's the box?
401. The key doesn't turn.
401. What's your name?
Nelson. It was okay yesterday.
Oh, yeah. We had to change the lock. It was broken.
It wasn't broken yesterday.
And your card's out of date. There's no address.
This is my address. That's why I rent the box.
Well, we need to know where you work then.
Ibrahim, I thought that was you.
Who the hell is that?
He followed the subject in.
Check Face ID.
It's been a long time. Don't you remember? We met at the conference at Suleiman's.
Oh, yes.
No match yet.
Is that a gun?
Sure looks like it. Our visitor has a weapon.
As soon as I'm done here with my business, I need to talk to you about something. If you are not too busy, would you like to get some coffee? We could go down the street.
Sir, we need an emergency contact, an employer, friend.
Come on, Mr. Nelson, just give us a name.
We're spooked. We're gonna lose him.
I'll come back later. Take him up.
Put your hand up. Put it down.
Everybody? I'm going.
Police! Stop your whistle! Hold your fire! I'm a federal agent! Keep your hands where you can see them. FBI! INS.
Secret Service.
Wasn't one of those guys supposed to be a terrorist?
I'm glad that it came across. And there's so much truth to that, isn't there?
Yes.
So much truth to that. As you've seen, until the advent of the so-called war on terror, almost no false flag events were laughable. The gunpowder plot was not laughable. Pearl Harbor was not a joke. The Reichstag fire wasn't a giggle. But now we have something called the masters of psyops, and their twisted minds are marinated in an excited delirium of unaccountable deception and impunity. I borrowed that phrase from somebody. And they're laying down, between train bombings, a slap-happy hit parade of preposterous false flag ops. And I would go back to the August 2006 transatlantic exploding shampoo terror fraud. Do you remember that one? That was after the shoe bomber terror fraud, which has everybody taking off their shoes in airports ever since. The exploding shampoo terror fraud has been a windfall for security people at airports. None of them have dandruff anymore. And I remember in August of 2006, I was getting on an Air Canada plane, and this exploding shampoo terror fraud had just happened, like a couple of days before. And so when I was going up the stairs, and I came, and there were the flight attendants there, and a co-pilot or whatever, and it suddenly came into my mind, and I thought, I got to do this with a smile, because I could get into trouble otherwise. It just occurred to me to do this in a flash. And I smiled and I said, hey, because they were all laughing. They were all joking and laughing. And I said, how can you guys be so happy when there's just been this terrible terror event? And instantly, without missing a beat, I said, that's all fake, that's all fake. These flight attendants and the co-pilot instantly said that. It was so revealing that we had the case of the underwear bomber who had been banned from Britain. He had a one-way ticket, he paid with cash, and so on.
No passport.
And no passport.
No luggage.
That was no luggage, and so on. So what Conan O'Brien said on his show about the underwear bomber, he said this: it's now been reported that Britain did pass information on to U.S. authorities about the attempted underwear bomber. But the U.S. disregarded it. In part, Conan said, that's because the British intelligence referred to him as a bloke with boomsy-woomsy in his knickers. So that's transatlantically, it didn't get interpreted. Anyway, that's my 30 minutes or 30 and a half minutes. And now we have lots of time for questions, answers, and discussion.
I hope you realize how desperately difficult it was for us to not blab on longer, right? I mean, to talk for half an hour is so hard. But what we did is we did that so that we would have some chance for Q&A and discussion. So please go for it.
I just finished reading Daniel Ellsberg's book.
Secrets.
Secrets, yeah. And it's fascinating. His wife was entirely on his side and helped him duplicate 70,000 pages of Pentagon papers. All these people had wives, mothers, sisters. Why are they all so quiet? Why don't we know more? I mean, we need more whistleblowers as far as 9/11 goes. I mean, it would be helpful to have more whistleblowers, let's put it that way. What is keeping the women silent about what their husbands are doing?
A couple of things occur. One of them more or less buttresses what you're suggesting. Do you remember in the book where he wrote that after he was found out, all his colleagues in Iran Corporation, every last one of them, would not speak to him? They turned to a man. To a man, they rejected him. But there was one person he had worked with who applauded him and thanked him, and it was a female secretary. Yeah. But anyway, one thing is that there are females, I think, who do blow the whistle, as it were, but we just don't hear about them, just as we don't hear about male whistleblowers. And I have heard about a woman who was married to a very abusive military man who had done all sorts of killing and so on, and he was abusing her too, and she did speak up. But I saw that and it was very believable. And I saw it on the internet. There's no way it would make it in any paper. And so I think that women are censored out, just as anybody who wants to blow a whistle on any part of this diaboligarchy is censored out.
Or intimidated.
Or is which? Intimidated, bullied, or actually rubbed out.
I have an answer for Shirley. Sybil Edmonds is a huge whistleblower who was shut right up by having her gagged. And I would put her in the category of extremely, but it's typically the job holder. And this is why I could go on.
I really appreciate the work you've been doing and what I've been learning. It's been eye-opening and important. At the same time, I realize that what the United States has done, particularly the United States, not a lone job, in Iraq and so on, against so many peoples in the world, that there's got to be some terrorist activity. And so in your research, has there been any true terrorism from that side that isn't something fabricated from our side?
I'll make a few comments about that. See, again, I don't find that the word terrorism helps us very much. But there's been plenty of violence against civilians that is meant to intimidate societies, for sure, in all kinds of parts of the world. Muslims have done it, Hindus have done it, Christians have done it, Buddhists have done it. You know, so various parts of the world that I've been involved in as a peace builder. We had a project in Sri Lanka, for example. Well, the Tamil Tigers were one of the pioneers in the use of suicide bombing. Sure, they did lots of violence against civilians, meant to intimidate their opponents and so on. No question about it. They weren't Muslims, though. And we're led to believe that Muslims are the main terrorists, and they're certainly the main suicide bombers. Most Tamil Tigers, to the extent that they had any religion, were identified with Hinduism, some with Christianity, a lot of them with various vague left-wing sympathies. So there's plenty of genuine violence against civilians in various parts of the world, and Muslims do it too, of course. Genuine suicide bombings, for example, for sure, Palestinians and others. But, so it's not a question of saying, you know, no Muslim in the world has ever done this, and so on and so forth. It's a matter of saying, don't believe what your state tells you, and don't believe what your mainstream media tells you. Look for evidence. Investigate. Research. And in the meantime, just don't go for it. I mean, how many times do I pick up the Globe and Mail, as Barrie said? It's the lap bomber, it's the liquid bomber, it's the Times Square bomber. Well, I just don't believe any of it. What does that mean? It just means that until I see the evidence for it, I won't accept it. And I think that people sometimes say, oh, there may be another 9/11 someday. Well, yeah, if that, you know, there may be a very, very large false flag operation. But in the meantime, we have a whole series of little ones. They're happening all the time. So again, it's not a matter of general sweeping statements about those people would never do it. It's a matter of critical scrutiny to figure out the truth from the false.
A month ago, a bank was firebombed in Ottawa. The video was posted on the internet, and the credit was claimed by an unknown, I would say, anarchist group. And 2 days ago, they arrested a couple of people. It's very convenient for this summit that they did that, actually. But how do we respond to that? How do we evaluate that? And I'll just note that it's really a footnote, but I've spoken to someone at this conference who thought it was a good idea to accomplish something, but I think most of us would say it was a big propaganda effort by the state, or certainly fed into that, into what Harper's agenda is.
Very important question. I just want to put it in context by saying I'm quite worried when G20 and G8 meetings happen. And I'm worried about whether we'll get through these without some false flag operations. Now, Barrie has looked a little bit more at that one than I have, so...
Well, we were just discussing this at breakfast, that's why and we're sort of going back and forth on this anyway.